What is up, everybody? We are live, Aaron the Dog back with the LFA 137 breakdown show. The last breakdown of the week. Let me just plug in my laptop here. But as always, or as usual for my LFA breakdowns, I'm here with the LFA legend himself. That guy knows LFA is what I hear every time when someone talks to me about these shows. Lucky Locks picks himself. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited for this one. This is actually a really good card. So far this year, LFA, honestly, they've been killing it from the start of the year out to the summer. Been really good cards. This is another one. A lot of fights on this main card as well. I think there's like 7 or 8 fights that we're going to talk about
They've been
today.
doing that more, where they've
Yeah.
been like 7, and even on the prelims, there's a couple that I think are pretty interesting to watch. But
Yeah, they're
still only sticking to the main card. I'm not gonna do prelims for LFA yet, but I would dare to say that LFA is the most consistent fighting organization this year of any of the pro organizations.
Yeah, definitely make the argument for sure.
Yeah. It's well ahead of PFL, my least favorite.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
God, I
Easy.
hate PFL. I'm sorry. I'm so close to not watching. I watch everything. But Commerce City, California, Commerce Casino and Hotel. So no open scoring. That's always the thing I like to look for. We've got Chef Boy Carly on the prelims, though, as I mentioned. And then other than that, not the highest level. You got Tyson Miller making his return. So he's going to be a guy I think we're talking about on main card after this. But a couple of undefeated fighters. Good prelims, honestly. They should just put it all on Fight Pass. I hate watching prelims on Facebook. There's just something that doesn't feel right about that. But get into this 145 or 115, I should say, strawweight division. Pauline Macias, who since her Contender Series fight with Gloria DePaula, I have forever combined Pauline Macias and Gloria DePaula into one fighter. That's just my own weird thing there. But one thing I know for sure, she's an undersized 115er. She always is going to be. Going against Amber Brown here. Both these girls not very big, though. Pauline Macias, definitely the known fighter here, 34 years old, fighting out of Denver with Team Elevation or Elevation Fight Team. Amber Brown, the bully, 7-6 here, coming in off 2 straight losses, hasn't fought since 2019. She was fighting at atomweight in Invicta because she's small, then went up to strawweight for a 1-round fight with the Phoenix Series, which is what the Phoenix Series is. Her last 5 losses are to decent competition. Ayaka Hamasaki, I should say, with Invicta, definitely a high level. Ashley Yoder getting finished by her is what it is. Ashley Cummins, Alicia Zapatella, and then Sharon Jacobson. Never heard of her. No notable wins really on her record. Catherine Costigan, 5-0, but I believe retired shortly after that. Same with Kyoku Ishikawa, who she beat with Pancrase, who retired after that fight. So overall, more of a grappler than anything here. Pauline Macias, former judoka Olympian, I believe. Very good credentials, but didn't really see it translated in her Contender Series fight on LFA with Marnik Mann. She got triangle choked in the 3rd round, just was pretty physically overmatched there. That's kind of her big problem. She's going against a fellow smaller strawweight here in Amber Brown. I mean, she should be able to take this one, but there's nowhere in the world where minus 300 Pauline Macias is going on AMI tickets. So Pauline is my official pick, but there's no bet to make here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add. Macias obviously training at Elevation Fight Team. She's a black belt in judo, I believe. 4-2 as a pro, and she's now lost 2 in a row. Mardik Mann, Gloria DePaula. I mean, no shame in either of those losses, really, as it pertains to this particular matchup. I mean, I don't think because you lost to one of those, that means you're going to lose to Amber Brown. Amber Brown is a veteran. She's actually shockingly a little bit younger than Macias. She has more than double the fights, 9 of them coming on Invicta. And, she has fought like actually pretty decent competition, but she's 1-6 in her last 7. And yeah, she's lost 3 times by decision, 3 times by sub. Even though Macias is like somehow the older fighter here, I think she's the more talented prospect training at a much better camp. I think she snaps the losing streak here and gets the win.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we see this pretty similarly. I think it's going to be one of these, few fights where like Pauline actually might not be the. I think she's still going to be a little bit smaller though from a strength perspective, but this is as close as she's going to get to a similar size opponent. And yeah, minus 350, I have no interest in. I think that's way over, but no way I'm betting Amber Brown in this situation either. Just going to pass on this one. Almost think they could have switched this with Carly's fight, but it's okay. Or even the Danny Silva fight. But it is what it is. They wanted the women's fight on there, so Pauline should get the win, but I don't expect it to be too exciting, if I'm being honest. Next fight here, I do expect to be quite exciting. I thought I was talking muted for a second again, but good, I wasn't. A very, very good prospect here in Billy Elkana. Elkana, I never can say the name right, but yeah, Billy, very good prospect, 4-0 only though, so still very young in his pro career, taking on what I like to call a mid-30s kind of prospect in Daniel Compton. Really fun fighter to watch, very fun tape to watch. Came in as kind of a Muay Thai guy, has formed into a more well-rounded overall MMA fighter as he's gone on. The David Gladfelter fight is and the Joshua Cropshot fights are actually sneaky good fights. And they were really fun to watch for one, but good level of competition in both of those. David Gladfelter ended actually beat very good prospect in Bazooka, or forgetting his name, but you're 2 fights ago with Icon, David Gladfelter. Let me just go to this. This is going to bother me. Dylan Budka, which it was Dylan's, debut, and I think Dylan learned a lot from that fight. But still, Gladfelter, big guy, came into that fight, was having some good success early on, and Daniel was very, very tough. Took everything kind of David had to take and kind of broke him. Ended up putting up a pretty slick armbar to end up getting the win there. So pretty impressive there. Was in some tricky grappling spots with Joshua Cropshot, who I'll probably rate higher than most people. But I like Josh. I think it's a good win to have. And then put away Danny Davis Jr. back in May, knocked him out. That's more what he was known for coming into his MMA career, but really does have a good overall game. Hasn't faced a great level of competition. He has been over with Bellator, so that's good. But Billy, he's the real deal. 4-0. He does have some issues, I think, making this weight. That's definitely something that I think has to be noted. Missed weight by 6 pounds in his last fight against Coleman Schreiber, or Scribner. And I'll tell you, I think that made a big difference in that fight. I think that, it would have been much closer if he had to lose that weight. But either way, good win there. The Jeff Nielsen win, even though it's an 0-0 guy, solid win with LFA there. Good. Just overall wrestling and physical, he's very well, but striking's gotten much better. I'm interested in this one from a dog perspective, though. I think Daniel Compton has a real good game to him and has the type of game that I think could start to stretch and maybe expose some issues in Billy, especially if Billy makes the weight. I think that his gas could be an issue and his ability to pace, and maybe he pours a little bit too much into that first round and Daniel survives similar to Gladfelter. I just think the price is way out of bounds here for Billy. So I am taking a slight shot on Daniel Compton actually, to get the upset win here. I think that the second and third rounds could get very dangerous for Billy. I think early on Billy gets off to a good start, but we'll see if he can sustain that. Daniel's really tough and he's tricky. If he can exploit the grappling, he will. He's got good striking, good in the clinch, a lot of good, Muay Thai strikes in the clinch I've seen from him, and he's not going to quit. I mean, he's 34. This is his chance. Like, he loses, this kind of fight here, he's not getting probably another opportunity like this. He can take a lot of opportunities. So I'm going with the big upset here, Daniel Compton. The odds I just think are way off, but I also just think this is the kind of fight that fighter Billy could lose to. Someone who he's technically better than, way more athletic, younger, and everything he checks, but it's just that grit of Daniel I think could really hurt Billy later in the fight.
Yeah, Alicana's coming in here. He's a big physical guy. You know, he looks really physically strong. Got a good striking acumen as well. As an amateur, he was 6-1-1, pretty good career there, and he's making his third LFA appearance here. He's 4-0 as a pro fighter. He did win his last fight impressively in the first round. Daniel Compton, older guy, but he started to look pretty good as of late. He's 6-2 pro. He was 4-3 as an amateur and kind of started his career as a pro off a little bit rocky 3-2, but he's won 3 straight now, and he's had all finishes in all of those fights. Not really the greatest level of competition, but he has been looking good in there. Alicana's a really big favorite. I am going to pick him to win. I think he's going to win this fight. But I mean, I'm really not interested in minus 650 or whatever it's at. I just don't really think
I got Daniel at
he's
plus
reliable enough at this
425.
point.
Yeah, I got Daniel at plus 425.
Yeah, I mean, at that price, how wrong could you really be on that? You know what I
Right.
mean?
I just think like David Gladfelter, who maybe he won't end up being that great, but I think he looks like a pretty promising, like similar type of prospect to Billy, where he's very big, very physical. And David hadn't shown any signs of like that gas issue before that fight with Daniel. So like Billy kind of has. He missed weight by 6.5 pounds his last fight. So it's like, maybe he's so focused on that. I don't know. It's just I'm not like pouring a hammer onto this. I'm not, but at 425, I didn't have to pour really too hard onto it. So just a slight sprinkle from me. Maybe Billy looks really good. I think if Billy looks good, I mean, you'd really start to look at taking that next step up for Billy to start working towards, you know, that contender series type of level, because I think he could be there like a Dunlap, like some of these other guys. He looks to be the case. I'm just wondering if, when he runs into that guy who kind of can survive that first onslaught, how he does. So we'll see. Should be a good fight there. And, from a size perspective, Daniel's a little bigger too at 6'3". He's a big 185er as well. So I do like that. For making it a little bit tougher on Billy to carry the weight, maybe as the fight goes too. Next fight here, this one to me, I think is another very close fight. Love Javier Garcia, always will. I've been right on the guy, I've been wrong on the guy. Definitely not a guy that I can say I have an incredibly good read one way or the other, but definitely respect this game. Take it on Leandro Gomez, guy I was just wrong about last fight against Askar. I was on Leandro in that fight, and it was a hell of a fight. Really didn't make me feel worse about Leandro as a featherweight moving forward, that's for sure. 8-5 Javier El Mariachi Garcia, 8-5, 30 years old, 5'10", 69-inch reach. You look at every single one of the numbers on paper and you're like, yeah, not impressive at all. And just you look at him and you're like, yeah, he doesn't look that impressive besides the mustache. But it's out of California, and dude's he's a gamer. He really is. The AJ Cunningham fight was his LFA debut, and that's where I learned to stop doubting Javier Garcia. It was all over Cunningham in that spot. Cunningham was a huge prospect, both physically and from a momentum standpoint, and Javier just went in there and took it all. He really mixed it up well. His timing on his takedowns is excellent. Showed that against Timothy Tevez. In that fight, they had the toughness. Timothy was beating him up well. Again, I picked Timothy Tevez in that spot, and then snatches up that triangle. Really impressive. The Bruno Souza fight, it is what it is. Bruno Souza in the UFC now, a very tough guy to go against for 5 rounds. And then Ryan Filligame, a guy who, to me, if you're not being Ryan Filligame in 2021, you're not good. Like if you are, maybe you're good. So led to the Chase Gibson fight. We'll be talking about Chase Gibson shortly, but Chase Gibson is just a better version of what Javier Garcia does. So he's just more of a grinder, a little more well-rounded. So it's just he ran into a tough matchup. I think he's running into another tough matchup here with Pequeño Hawk and Leandro Gomez, former bantamweight, now at King's MMA, 5'7", 31 years old. So both these guys not on the bigger end. As I said, the split decision against Askar his last time out. That was at bantamweight. Going back up to featherweight here for this fight. I don't really mind it. I liked how he looked against Jacob Thrall in their fight back in July against Yuma. He had, again, at bantamweight, I just think there's a little bit of, a weight cut issue that causes him not to be able to go at the same kind of pace and velocity at 145. I think this is going to be a really close fight, straight up. I think that it's a fight that I'm not looking to place a bet on necessarily. If anything, I think that Javier Garcia gives Leandro welcome back to 145 here, because I do think this could be a tough spot for him. I think that Leandro is going to have to deal with a lot of grappling and wrestling on Javier, and I'm curious to see how he kind of handles that through 3 rounds. I think that it could be pretty tough. So I was pretty surprised. I was, looking at the odds, quite surprised at how heavy Gomez is the favorite here. This might be another spot where I'm betting on the dog, because I got Javier Garcia by decision.
Yeah, man, this should be a fun fight and also should be a close fight. I mean, Leandro Gomez, King's MMA, both two, regulars on LFA here. This is his 5th time fighting on the show. He's 3-1 on the 4 fights that he's had here. Wins over Yuma Horiyuchi, Jacob Thrall. Those are good wins. I mean, Horiyuchi obviously wasn't at his natural 125-pound weight. And you see Gomez here is up at 145. So a little bit of a differential there. But he lost his last fight to Oscar. Gomez is a very good grappler, and he's a decent striker. Just one thing that I don't like about his game is I find that he moves backwards a lot. And a lot of times in his fights, if it's playing out on the feet, the vast majority of the time, he's the one on the back foot. And he lands decent from the outside, but it's just the optics of that are not great for the judges. It's not really great for him trying to get his grappling going when he's backing up all the time. And we've also seen him slow down before in fights. I mean, this isn't his first time at 145, but he has spent a lot of time at 135. Maybe a bit less of a cut will help him look fresher in that 2nd and 3rd round. I don't really know, but I do think he's going to be a bit smaller than Garcia here. Garcia is another guy that's, a regular. He's on the show a lot. 6th and 6th consecutive appearance on LFA for Garcia here. He is 3-2 on the LFA. His losses came to Bruno Souza. You mentioned he's in the UFC. Other one, Chase Gibson. He's in the main event tonight. We'll talk about him later. Has really good wins. AJ Cunningham, you pointed that one out. Tim Tevez, it's another good win. I believe he's the more natural 145-pounder, although I do think Gomez will probably fill into that frame nicely. Garcia is a very slick grappler, and although he lost that last fight, he had some big moments in the grappling. I mean, reversal in the 1st round, almost had the rear naked choke there, reverse to the back another time in the 2nd round, and he looked pretty sharp. Striking, boxing combinations were pretty good, and he's just a well-rounded guy. He's a good striker, he's a good grappler, he pushes the pace. I like this guy, but what it comes down to for me is I'm just not sure how Gomez could possibly cover minus 280 here, aside from getting a submission win, I guess. I mean, I think this fight's going to have a bunch of crazy scrambles. I think it's going to have some wild striking exchanges, and I think it's probably going to decision too. And I'd rather be holding a plus 220 on Javier
plus
Garcia.
220 from California.
Yeah, in a fight that I think could definitely end up in a split decision. So I'm leaning to the dog in this one.
Yeah, I was expecting this to be close to a pick 'em, maybe like a minus 140, minus 150 for Gomez. But honestly, I'm quite surprised by this here. I think, that Javier is going to have the crowd on his side. He's going to come out with the mariachi music. He's from the Commerce, California area as well. So if it's a close judging, the judges might just be like, "Ooh, they're cheering for this guy," and they don't really like this Brazil. It's, again, I know that it sucks to have to think about that, but we know MMA judging. So I think it's just close. And anytime it's close, a minus 280 card is not what I want. So possible bet here, but I'm going with Javier either way. So I think it's going to be close, though. So Javier by decision for me. Next fight of the night on the main card here at 125. I know this is a fight that we've both had circled. I already have my pick for this involved in several parlays that are already active from the Contender Series last night. 125, Cody Davis taking on Mark Clamaco here. Very good fight for 125. About as good as you can get outside of the big companies here. 24-year-old Mark Clamaco here out of AKA, longtime prospect here, 6-1 now, coming off that loss to Yuma Horiyuchi. Pretty bad loss too. Got knocked out pretty quickly in that one. That was back in November, so he's been off for 8 months since that fight. Be interesting to see the improvements he's made, how he responds to the first loss, not only of his pro career but his amateur career as well. You know, it's always interesting how guys come back from that. With the LFA, he had gone to a decision in his 2 fights as well, with pretty decent level of competition. So he's really tested himself with his first 3 fights, and he continues to here with Cody Davis. Cody Davis is absolutely well rounded as they come, in my opinion. He's going to be a little smaller at 5'3", smaller than most of his opposition, but he is quicker than most of his opposition as well. 27 years old. A lot of decisions for him. 12 straight wins going back to his amateur career here. Very good, grappler, good at in and out with his striking. He has experience with Cage Warriors as well as with LFA. Last time out, beating Peyton Brzezinski pretty impressively in that fight. Never really in a lot of trouble. He's just a very well-rounded guy. Fights a lot like a William Starks type of guy, but at 125. So he is much more of a point fighter. Not going to get you a ton of finishes here, so that is to be cautious of. But I just think overall, he's not tested himself to the level of Clamaco, so that's my worry here. Clamaco's faced a much better level of competition, but I just think Cody mixes it up, keeps the pace, and wins a decision here. With how close the odds were, I did take Cody Davis in several of my parlays last night as well. Cody Davis cashed with Anton. Cody Davis cashed with a few other fighters on the card. So at minus 160 too. So I think this is a, probably pretty accurate line, if not a little bit low for Cody, but I really like Cody Davis. I've been on Cody Davis throughout his career, honestly, since Combate. So I buy into Cody Davis all the way here. I think he gets another decision win here.
Yeah, this is my favorite fight on the card, and obviously we had talked about this one a little bit prior to coming on the show. Cody Davis, 7-0 amateur, 5-0 pro. That's 12 straight wins over his overall MMA career. This is going to be his second time on LFA, and he's fought pretty decent competition so far. Not as good as Mark Clamaco, but pretty decent. His last win over Peyton Brzezinski, I think that's a really good win. Brzezinski is a guy that doesn't maybe look just on the eye test, if you just pull up his profile, doesn't really look like the best win ever, but he's a really good wrestler, really strong guy, really athletic guy. And Cody Davis, to be able to win that one in the way that he did, I was very impressed. And he got taken down a bunch earlier in that fight, but did really well to get back up, showed some strong defensive grappling, and actually ended that round on the back with a pretty tight rear naked choke locked on. And if he had a couple more seconds on the clock there, maybe he could have finished that one. He got to the back again in the second and just really dominated that fight. After kind of the first half of the first round, it was all Cody Davis, and his offensive grappling has looked good over the course of his career so far. He looks like a great athlete. He's very fast, very quick. His footwork is good. Mark Clamaco is another guy that I've been very high on as well. I mean, he's an AKA prospect, 4-0 amateur career, and then started his pro career off 6-0. Took his first loss last time against Yuma Horiyuchi. He just got caught there. This is going to be his 4th time on LFA, and he's got good wins on his resume. Palolu Nakanalua, Rodney Kialohi, these are good names. And he's a pretty sharp striker at distance. He's also a very good wrestler. He looks like an AKA prospect, I'll say that much. I don't really see a finish in this fight, but I probably would say that Clamaco has a bit more finishing equity here. If we were going to see one, I think it would probably be on that side. But yeah, something about Cody Davis, man. I think that's the way I'm leaning. The first time I watched this guy fight, I was on one of the California Cage Warriors events, and I liked him after that. I wasn't completely sold, but that last performance on LFA really sold me. I think this guy's really good. I also think Clamaco was really good. And like you mentioned, Cody Davis hasn't tested himself against an opponent of this caliber. His last one was very good. This is even still, I think, going to be just a slight step up again. But I got to go with Cody Davis in this one. I think he wins the decision.
Yeah, my minus 160. I do like the price as well. He, to me, is my probably favorite on the card, just from combine his value and the matchup here. I think he ends up getting the back of Clamaco and kind of having that back control type of game. Similar once again, getting us into the grappling. Mark being a good wrestler too, I think he'll be willing to wrestle a little more than he should in this case. But yeah, we'll see. It should be a good fight. Plus 125 on Mark Clamaco. I definitely can understand the plays on him there. Next fight is at 155, and John Paul Liboniani, also known as just get rid of the Lit and Bosniani on a lot of his fights. They got rid of the LE part of his name. I'm not really sure what that's about, but there's quite a bit of tape on Jean Paul here. And unfortunately, not his quick knock, the time he got quickly knocked out by Roosevelt Roberts last year. I was not able to find that 30-second knockout. That's definitely concerning to me to see, but he's going against a completely pure grappler who has faced absolutely nobody in his career in the 30-year-old Caleb Hall. If you can't tell, I am not a fan of Caleb Hall's approach to getting into the LFA. 4-0, was able to watch all his fights. He's 6 foot tall, pretty decent size, 155 or 7 straight wins going back to his amateur career. Last lost to Dylan Lockard, which Dylan Lockard was on the Contender Series, I think like first season of it way back in the day. But you look at the wins, and they're over an 8-12, a 3-1 CJ Ewer, who didn't fight again. Jay Ellis, who, if you don't know Jay Ellis, then you don't know crappy regional Northeastern MMA. And Sean Ray, who had 0 wins and 0 losses when they faced each other. That never looked like he had faced a takedown before. Jay Ellis got on top of Caleb Hall in that fight and had the mount for moments. So in that 90-second fight, Jay Ellis had moments where he nearly won. Then he just got rear naked choke, quit. It just, Caleb Hall has gotten used to facing a very low level of competition. And I do not think that's going to do him any favors here going to John Paul. Mufasa here, 23 years old, 5'9". You can find like BJJ tape of this kid from like 11 years ago. This guy's been on the BJJ scene since he was a preteen, basically. So he's raised in combat sports, still only 23 years old. Chad George prodigy, former Bellator fighter. If you don't know Chad George, just look up you'll know him when you see him. He's been in combat jiu-jitsu world, was in there with Cody Steele, went to overtime with Cody Steele. I mean, he's facing a ridiculous level at 23 in the grappling scene. On the professional fighting scene, not as good. The Devin Brock fight was very entertaining. You can go back and watch that one. It will say fight highlights, but it actually will show the full fight. So it's kind of a weirdly titled video. He got knocked out by Spike Carlisle inside 2 minutes. I mean, that will happen. Doesn't have to worry about that necessarily here. These guys are going to grapple. Jean Paul, I think, has the advantage on the feet, which is, if he doesn't have the grappling going well, I think Jean Paul knocks him out. So Jean Paul all day long in this one. I do not rate Caleb Hall's at all.
Yeah, this should be a fun fight. Bosniani, this is going to be his 4th LFA appearance, and he had a 7-0 run through the amateurs. He's now 4-1 as a pro. That one loss was to Spike Carlisle that you mentioned. Not really too bad. I mean, Spike Carlisle was in the UFC. Now he's signed with Bellator. Bosniani has a 100% finish rate. Very high-level jiu-jitsu player. I've been training it basically his whole entire life. His dad was coached by Hoist Gracie's dad, and then his dad then taught Hoist Gracie. So, I mean, that's a pretty good jiu-jitsu pedigree to have. And obviously, Jean Paul's been training that for a very long time. 3 of his 4 wins are submissions, and he has competed at many, many prestigious jiu-jitsu competitions over the years and looks very promising earlier in his career so far. LXF lightweight champ, and he's coming up against Caleb Hall here, fighting out of Portland, Maine. 100% finish rate, all in the first round on NEF. He's 4-0. As an amateur before that, he was 8-4, was an amateur champion at NEF, where he's had all of his pro fights so far. And all 4 fights have ended in a submission win for him. But, the level of competition has been pretty low for the most part. You mentioned the absolute legend, Jay Ellis, who was 15-86 at the time. He is now 16-105. So hasn't picked up too many wins in the meantime. But yeah, Hall is a very strong guy. I mean, the wrestling and the grappling looks pretty good. I believe he is training at Syndicate in Las Vegas. I'll be interested to see what they look like in the weigh-in. I think that Hall could have a bit of a size advantage, but I'm going with Bosniani here. I think this fight maybe could play out a little bit closer than the line indicates, but I got to go with Bosniani in this one. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of grappling, and if there's going to be grappling, this is the guy I want to go with. So I'm not looking to bet this one, but I am going to pick Jean Paul to get the win.
Okay. Thank you for talking me off the ledge of putting Jean Paul too heavily in parlays here. And yeah, I mean, maybe Caleb Hall. I mean, we've seen before, fighters have very low level of competition and they're able to rise up. So maybe Caleb Hall shows that he's this good of a grappler. I don't know. I'm fading it, but again, we're gonna have to pay for it here, and in a spot where Caleb Hall could be the much bigger guy, it is kind of nerve wracking. Minus 365 is tough. Plus 290 on Caleb Hall. So yeah, sorry about the dogs, but it is what it is. Mailman comes when the mailman comes. But we're on to the third from the top here. Really good main card, and we continue with a pretty interesting fight here. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Jacob Rosalis versus Darren Smith, and it's a catchweight fight. I don't love catchweight fights, I never will, but it is what it is. Jacob Rosales coming off of a tough little run since the Contender Series for sure. Darren Smith Jr., Hollywood 21-12. It's gone against a very high level of competition at points in his career. Coming off a win in May with UNF over Chris Padilla. It was a split. And sorry, Darren Smith is the one who got knocked out by Roosevelt Roberts. I got it mixed up by one fight. So Darren Smith is who got knocked out by Roosevelt Roberts in 2021. So that's definitely a concern. But Jacob Rosales is not exactly known for his striking power. Goes to a lot of decisions. And before that, he went 4 rounds with Chris Curtis. Actually, ended up kind of quitting on the stool with an eye injury at the end. But I mean, he was having his moments against Chris Curtis. Honestly, put on good pressure. I think that he's going to be a good size coming down to 160 here against Jacob Rosales. I think he could make this fight pretty tricky. Sneaky power as well. The Joshua Jones knockout with Bellator, definitely an impressive win. The Arud Prigozhin fight back in 2018, he did what he needed to against Arud, get to the grappling, and that's how you beat Arud. So losing to high-level guys, Umarov and Adiev with ACB, no shame there. He did lose to Ryan Filligame by a split, but that was in 2016. He's just been around for a long time. Christian Aguilera gave him his first loss back in 2015. I mean, it's just he's been around for a while. And Jacob Rosales coming off some injuries here. A little bit nervous for him coming into this one. 13-7. He's had 2 shots on the Contender Series. Lost 2 times. Lost 2 times on the Contender Series as well. He's been over in Bellator back in the day. I mean, he's had a lot of chances. Also has a win over Joshua Jones with Bellator. Got knocked out by Jonathan Pierce in his first go around with the Contender Series. He lost a close decision to Bryce Logan. And then lost to Victor Martinez in a fight where he broke his arm pretty badly, I think in the end of the first round. So he kept going through that fight, but had a pretty bad injury to come back from there. And this is his first fight back since that, nearly 10 months ago. So not sure exactly when he got back in there, but yeah, I mean, I just don't know, where Jacob Rosales really his head's at this point. He's not a guy who I'd get super behind from a betting perspective. And I just think, oftentimes Darren Smith kind of comes into fights and puts a good pressure on his opponent. And Jacob at times really allows that pressure to come to him. Yeah, it's a tough call here. I don't have a super hard lean in this one. I mean, I guess if I had to, I would take Rosales, but I think it's going to be close again from a betting perspective. I'm not betting Jacob Rosales, and just looking up the odds here, I'm like shocked. I don't understand these odds. Maybe you can help me understand this. Minus 500 for Rosales. I don't get it. I got Rosales, but I think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, it should be an interesting fight. Rosales is a guy that's basically fought everywhere. I mean, Contender Series twice. He's been on LFA, RFA before LFA was even a thing. Contender Series, like I said, Bellator, 13-7. He's got 20 pro fights. He's 2-3 in his last 5, though, which isn't great, but he has been facing a pretty high level of competition. I mean, lost to Jonathan Pierce, Bryce Logan, Victor Martinez. That's kind of the level of opponent where he faces resistance. Darren Smith, you thought Rosales had experience. This guy's got 33 pro fights, 21-12 record, and has actually fought a very surprising kind of level of competition. I mean, he was on Bellator, was on ACB for a while. He submitted Arut Prigozhin on CX last fight. So he is coming in on pretty good momentum here. 35 years old now. Half of his losses have come inside the distance. I agree. I think this line is a little wide, but still, I think these guys are at very different points in their careers. I mean, Rosalis is still hungry, still fighting for that chance to get to the UFC. I think he's got more in the tank here. I'm picking him to win. Darren Smith Jr. is like 35 now, so starting to wind down. I feel like Rosalis has this one, but I mean, I'm not going to bet him minus 500 or whatever he is.
Yeah, minus 500 coming off an injury. It is surprising Rosalis only 27 years old. A guy who's been in, RFA and stuff to only be that age. We'll see. I mean, it's hard to look like a minus 500. So, like, good luck. There hasn't been too many fights in Rosales' career. I would look at him and say he looks like a minus 500. So that's just my spot here. Plus 300 on Darren Smith. Obviously, I'm not gonna be betting either side, but Darren Smith's fight with Chris Curtis was surprisingly close. Went to the fourth round of that fight too before they had to stop it with the eye injury. So kind of interesting there. But we'll move on to the co-main event. Very, very exciting co-main event, in my opinion. Ricardo Diaz, one of the more exciting guys in this division, coming up just short against Tanaka. Last time out, I did pick Diaz in that fight. Props to Tanaka. Tanaka looked really, really good from a physical perspective and just did what he needed to. Taking on a very different opponent here in John Sweeney. Hollywood here, 27 years old, upstate karate, a.k.a. Wonder Boys Gym. 10-3 overall out of, obviously Simpsonsville, South Carolina, coming off of 4 straight wins now. The last 3 being over a higher level of competition, including Cole Smith in a very competitive fight back in April with XMMA. XMMA, a very good organization, obviously, at this point. It's established themselves. He was pretty good with the in and out striking on Cole Smith. I had it for John Sweeney. I didn't think it was a split myself, but a good, highly competitive fight there back in April he's just he's a good sized bantamweight. He has not lost since losing to Cody Durden. That was in 2020. He got knocked out, and don't like to see that too much. That's definitely a little bit of a concern. He's been knocked out twice in his career so far. And Ricardo Diaz, you look at the highlights, what he hits hard. He's got that brutal flying knee that he throws in a lot of his fights. George Garcia was on the tough end of that in their fight, now known as Javier Garcia. That is the same one, So that's one to mention. Desmond Torres, another very competitive fight there, but showed he could go the distance there. Underrated jiu-jitsu as well. The guy is just a very well-rounded fighter. The Tanaka fight, no shame there at all. Tanaka, one of the better fighters in LFA currently. I think that Diaz rebounds very well in this fight. I think he'd be smart to use his jiu-jitsu, but I do think on the feet it will be pretty competitive as well. I just like Ricardo Diaz overall, and I'll take Ricardo to get a submission.
Yeah, this should be a really fun fight. Ricardo Diaz, King's MMA representative. He's got a really aggressive fighting style. He throws with ill intent. He's got some power in his hands. He actually dropped Tanaka in the first round of that last fight. And that was a fight where he was controlled for large portions of it. But I think that was kind of more a matter of the type of grappler that he was in there with on that particular night. He was able to have some moments. He did roll into mount in the second round, got reversed once again. But, it's still nice to see that he has that type of thing in his arsenal. And certainly against lesser grapplers, he will be a lot more dominant in those situations. So he is a very competent grappler, has a bunch of submissions on his record, and he's just kind of a natural finisher. When the chance is there, he steps on the gas, and he has a good gauge for when that time is. Sweeney, on the other hand, 10-3 record. He's a few years younger. I think he's going to have a nice reach advantage here, about 3 inches. Started his pro career on LFA way back in 2017, fought twice, got first round submissions in both of those, and then went over to NFC and knocked out Devontae Sewell, which is a nice win. That was a really great start to his career. Most recent loss came Over on NFC, that was to Cody Durden. He's won 4 straight since then, 2 of those coming on XMMA, and won a split decision over Cole Smith in his last fight, close fight. Kind of has that karate type style, but pretty good boxer as well. Good hand speed. He's got fast combinations. And I think the length advantage should suit kind of his outside fighting style. He's shown decent takedown defense, but I prefer the Ricardo Diaz side of plus 165. I think he's the better grappler. I think he's a durable guy. He carries power. I think that Sweeney does probably have a slight advantage at distance, but I don't think it's a big enough edge for me to want anything to do with him at like minus 200 or more. I think that Ricardo Diaz maybe not quite as good with, at distance with the volume, but he does have that power, and I do think he's the better grappler. And I think if he decides to wrestle and then use some jiu-jitsu here, this line will look slightly mispriced, I would say.
I didn't look at the odds before this. I am shocked. I was fully expecting Diaz to be the favorite here. Plus 165, I will be betting him. I do not think this, I think, frankly, Tanaka's a tougher recent opponent than Cole Smith. So even in that realm, and I'm very surprised by these odds here. I think they're off here. So this is a good, it's not often that there's like these very obvious dogs for me on LFA cards, but I have a couple that I've got more underdogs I'm betting right now than favorites of my bets. So interesting. Minus 205 on Sweeney, plus 165 on Mr. Diaz. Give me the underdog in Mr. Diaz. We're on to the main event now. This is in the featherweight division. Again, Commerce, California is where this is taking place at. Chase Gibson taking on Hyder Amil here. Chase Gibson has had a really, really fun little go of it since he's even on the Contender Series. Has had a fun go of it. But Hyder Amil, the Hurricane, will be breaking down first. Protege of Gilbert Melendez. If Gilbert's doing the announcing, we'll definitely know. He's out of El Nino Training Center, 7 straight wins. Last one in April when he took out Devontae Sewell by split decision. Very close fight there. No shame there. Devontae Sewell going to give a lot of guys their close fights. Good fights a lot of guys to split decisions, but did kind of show a little bit to me the level that Hyder is at. He's been pushed in a couple fights now, one with Bellator against Ignacio Ortiz to a split, and the Devontae Sewell split where just a little bit of he's a very good hammer, but what about when it's a pretty tough nail, what's going to happen type of thing. And also when he's pressured, how is he going to react to that? He seems like a very forward foot focused type of guy. When he's put on his back foot, when he's put against the cage, when he's put into grappling situations, I'm kind of curious how he's going to respond to it. He's gotten stoppages in 4 of his 6 wins. Again, the 2 they didn't were split decisions against the higher level of competition he's faced. The Hobson Jr. fight, very impressive beatdown, but he had to hit him with like 45 shots to put him away, and he kept getting into trouble in that spot as well against a guy in Hobson Jr. I don't rate very highly, frankly, at this point. I think he's a little bit of a busted prospect, got here a little too early. So Chase Gibson, to me, he's not a prospect. This dude's just an absolute grinder. He's earned his way to this spot. 32 years old now, 5'8", not the biggest of 145ers, 11-5, 2 straight wins since the Contender Series. The Contender Series gave Tucker Lutz everything he could take on that fight as well. It was a really competitive fight there. Similar type of situation where Tucker Lutz undefeated or 9-1 coming in there, but always kind of expects people to will to his power and his hammer. And Chase Gibson, he's going to fight for your money every single time out. And he's gotten more and more impressive from a physical perspective. He really sits down his shots well, good grappler as well. The Ty Clark fight was an undefeated fighter that he exposed with LFA. Ended up breaking him in the second round, getting him into that really nice darts choke and choking him out. The Javier Garcia fight, just from start to finish, was more pressuring than Javier Garcia, who we mentioned, pressures very, very well and it's very good volume. Chase Gibson beat him at his own game. I think Hyder could really start to crack under the pressure as this fight goes. I think this is a very tough matchup for him. And, I get it. He's got the power and everything, but Chase Gibson's been finished. One time. Yeah, one time he was finished by Gutierrez back with Combate in 2019. And, he kind of admitted at that point in his career he was at a kind of a little bit of a different spot. So Overall, I think this is going to be a close fight. Hyder, I think, is going to have his moments. If this was 5 rounds, I'd feel even better about starting to lean towards Chase. I definitely do see a round where Hyder's able to bank the first couple rounds. The offense sometimes for Chase is a little bit tardy to get started, but I think Chase is going to know what he has to do in the spot. Similar to Compton and similar to kind of my line on Compton and why I was going with Compton. This is a mid-30s, prospect who's in very good physical condition, who knows that, this is kind of one of the last go rounds for him. So I think he exposes a prospect in Hyder, and I think this is going to be my third underdog that I'm betting here because, again, I was expecting this to be like a pick 'em. Chase Gibson is a plus 150 underdog. I'm highly considering betting him. So Chase Gibson is my pick. I do think this goes the distance. I think it's going to be a very good fight, but I got Chase Gibson by decision. Chase Gibson's 32, by the way, not 35.
And one other correction I'll make about Chase Gibson. It does say he's 5'8" on Tapology. He's actually 5'10".
Okay.
So 5'10" and like 72 and a half, something like that.
He never looked undersized at featherweight. So
yeah, so he's actually a bit of a bigger guy than people think. I actually think he's going to be a little bit bigger just frame-wise than Hyder Amil. I mean, obviously, Hyder Amil is very muscular. I think he'll look like the more defined, built guy, but I actually think Chase Gibson's going to have the bigger frame here. So this is going to be the third time in LFA for Chase. He finished the undefeated Ty Clark in the second round and also won a decision over Javier Garcia. That's 2 really good wins. In his last 3 fights, he's 2-1. He lost to Tucker Lutz on Contender Series. And he's the much more experienced guy in this fight. 16 pro fights against pretty good guys versus 6 pro fights for Amil. And Gibson, he's got good wrestling, pretty good grappler. His body triangle is really strong. He's just a strong guy in general. Like I said, he's got a pretty decently big frame. His striking is kind of average-ish. I mean, in a 15-minute striking match with Amil, I don't really like that for him. I think he needs to implement the wrestling and grappling at some point here. I think he obviously knows that too. But he does have good length for the division, so it can kind of make the striking a little bit more competitive than maybe it truly is, just because he does have that range that he can rely on at times. Hyder Amil, 6-0. I mean, he's got a great record, but less experience. And I also have to correct the Tapology measurements here. So he's listed actually 5'9" by LFA. So both of these guys are actually taller than what they're listed as on Tapology. The reach is correct for Amil, though, 69.5 inches. So he's had 3 fights in Bellator prelims. He has 2 wins inside the distance and 1 via split decision. And he's also making his third consecutive LFA appearance now. Finished Hobson Jr. in the second round, then won a split decision over Devontae Sewell in April. And he had a really good first round in that fight, almost finished him, pretty much dominated that first round. Then started looking pretty good in the second, but Sewell started to land some elbows, really busted him open. Amil was still kind of landing some damage of his own, but he started to look more labored. The body language didn't look all that great at certain points in that fight. His face was all bloodied up. Got a takedown towards the end. Sewell had a guillotine attempt that wasn't really that close, but it was something. So you can kind of see how a judge gave that round to Sewell. Overall, I thought Amil was the better fighter and did deserve the decision. I was sort of surprised it was a split, but round 2 and round 3 were very competitive. Also, side note, we kind of touched on this. This fight is taking place in California. If Gilbert Melendez is commentating this, get ready for some super biased commentary. Probably going to be straight up coaching.
Loud crowd cheers, too.
Yeah, straight up coaching him from the commentary booth. So it's a close fight, man. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. If you've backed Chase Gibson as an underdog lately, you've done pretty well for yourself. He's been the dog in all 3 of his last fights, and if you put 100 on him at his average closing line each time, you'd have made 125 profit over those 3 fights. If it ain't broke, man, don't fix it. So I'm going to stick with Chase Gibson here. This is kind of a show me spot for Hyder Amil. Show me that you deserve to be the favorite over Chase Gibson here. And if he can, then yeah, maybe he is for real. But I'm going to agree with you here. I think that Chase Gibson's going to expose this guy on Friday.
Yeah, and so on this card, do we agree on all the fights, all 7?
Except you're on Compton and I'm on.
I'm on Compton. Yep,
but exactly. I'm not going anywhere near that.
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, just really quickly, we both have Pauline Macias here to edge out a decision. We disagree. I got Compton getting a late finish. You got Billy. I might look very dumb on that one. I get it. We're both on Javier Garcia, the underdog there. Cody Davis were on, the slight favorite there, and we really like his spot. We're both on Jean Paul. I'm a little more so, but you're cautiously on him here, which is totally reasonable. We're both on Jacob Rosales. We're both on the underdog Diaz and the underdog Gibson. So for me, I have 4 underdogs on this card in 7 fights. So that tells you kind of about this LFA. This is I think the most competitive LFA of the year for me. I can't remember last time I had 4 underdogs, and agreeing with you on 3 of them makes me feel a lot better. I'll be honest. We've been doing pretty well on our agreements overall for the season. So 6 to 7 fights to agree on. That's money for you guys there. So go ahead and check those out. But that is going to do it for the LFA 137 breakdown show. I want to thank you, Lucky, as always, for joining me. 50 minutes we put in today. So that's definitely good stuff for everybody. Timestamps will be up. Check out Lucky Lock's video. Is it up yet?
It is not up yet. I got to record that later, actually.
Don't worry. Yeah, no, that's the kind of love he has. He did his video with me before his own. So I appreciate it, man. Always appreciate having you on. I believe there's an LFA next week, so we'll be back next week. Got the Contender Series, LFA, UFC. It's a good time to be an MMA fan. But for Lucky Locks and Aaron the Dog, we're out. Enjoy the fights on Friday. Good luck on Saturday as well, people. Peace.